Hi, I'm Steve from Oasis, and today we're looking at the last part of Matthew chapter 10 and the first few verses of chapter 11. If you saw yesterday's devotion, you may remember that Jesus told us that we were to expect that many will reject us and possibly even hate us because we are followers of Jesus, and that may include some even from our very own families. And in these verses he continues to instruct his disciples about this issue, and one of the things he says 3 times is do not fear. And of course that is easier said than done, but how do we handle a fear of being persecuted? What helps? Well, Jesus gives a number of helps in these verses. So I just want to highlight 2 that particularly stood out to me. I think you'll enjoy the first one particularly. We don't fear because the worst your persecutors can do is physically kill you. I hope that helps you this morning. It certainly challenges our short-term self-focused perspective that we are entitled to a long, happy life. Jesus wants to lift our eyes so that we can have a long-term, eternal perspective. You see, this life is a mere breath compared to a whole eternity we have together with Jesus to know him and enjoy him. But right now, nobody and nothing can separate us from the love of God and from a beautiful, intimate relationship with our loving Father. Really, not knowing him is the only fear we should have. The second help that I love from these verses that helps us to not fear is to know that our Heavenly Father cares for us. He knows the exact number of hairs on our heads. And these verses too talk about the sparrows and how God cares for the sparrows. Not even a single sparrow falls to the ground without God's awareness and permission. How amazing to know that. And it just makes us realize how much more he is aware of us and how much he values us, how much he knows what you are walking through right now and is with you. So fear not. And then Jesus finishes his teaching his disciples, but our Bible in a Year reading carries on for a few more verses in chapter 11, and it's tempting to overlook it. But if we just overlook those first few verses of chapter 11, we miss a beautiful golden nugget. And those first few verses are about the fact that John the Baptist is having something of a crisis of faith in his life. So they're interesting verses. He's in prison, so he's personally experiencing what Jesus has just been preparing his disciples for. He's suffering because of his faith in Jesus. But Jesus isn't delivering him. Jesus doesn't even seem to be visiting him. But perhaps the even bigger issue for John the Baptist is that he prophesied about Jesus coming, the Messiah coming, and about him bringing judgment and bringing justice to the earth. And John didn't seem to be hearing about that in Jesus' ministry. So he sent some of his disciples to ask, are you the Messiah? He was questioning that. And Jesus responds to him in a beautiful, very tender way. And he says this to John's disciples: go and tell John what you see and hear. The blind receive their sight and the lame walk. Lepers are cleansed and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them. But then he adds this: and blessed is the one who is not offended by me. Or in other words, don't lose faith because I don't do what you hoped or expected. I was reading the Circlemaker recently by Mark Baddison. It's a book about prayer, and he refers to a couple that he knew who had a very powerful prayer ministry. When they prayed for other people, things happened. And yet they had quite a few big issues in their own life, and they were often bringing those to God. But it seemed like God never answered their prayers, although it gave them wonderful answers with regard to other people. And they learnt to make this phrase of Jesus their bottom line. They decided that they would not be offended by him and what he was doing or not doing in their life. You know, if John the Baptist had major questions when tough times came, so will we. Just a couple of months ago, I experienced a personal disappointment, and it really affected my prayer life. I didn't stop praying, but I found I was praying without much faith or without much conviction. I was going through the motions, and I think really I was sulking. I was thinking, if God doesn't answer my prayer, why should I carry on praying? But just like Jesus with John the Baptist, he just came to me in such a tender way and drew my attention back to him, changed my perspective again. Didn't do it in a harsh, judging way. And I found I was able to gradually recover that appetite for prayer. At the end of the day, where else is there for us to go? And following Jesus may be costly and confusing for you right now, but I want to encourage you, bring your questions and your doubts to him and confidently trust him as the one who values and cares for you more than the sparrows. God bless you. See you soon.